A fast forward to 1893 when the British Royal Navy was super focused on the Mediterranean Sea, and for a really good reason. It was the main highway connecting Britain to India, and they knew their rivals France and Italy were eyeing it too. To keep this key route safe, they assembled an elite naval force, making their Mediterranean fleet one of the most formidable at that time. On June 22, 1893, a massive chunk of this powerful fleet, consisting of 11 behemoth ships, 8 battleships and 3 massive cruisers, gathered near Tripoli in modern-day Lebanon for their annual training exercises. These drills were essential to keeping their fleet sharp and battle-ready. Imagine if intense boot camp turned into a nightmare at sea. That's what happened with one of history's deadliest shipwrecks, and now we're uncovering a chilling discovery that's leaving us all spooked. Buckle up as we dive into this jaw-dropping tale of naval training gone horribly wrong, an incident that could still pose a threat today. Sir George Tryon, the no-nonsense commander-in-chief of the Mediterranean Fleet, pushed his sailors to their limits with rigorous fleet exercises, using only signal flags, semaphore, and old-fashioned signal lamps for communication before the days of wireless tech. Fasten your seatbelts, folks. Tryon revolutionized ship handling with a game-changing system called TA, and trust me, it's not as boring as it sounds. TA stands for turn away, but when that flag went up, all ships had to follow the flagship's lead without waiting for additional commands. It was like having a choreographed dance routine at sea. Tryon thought that making his sailors practice these complex maneuvers again and again in fleet exercises would be key to keeping them safe. Talk about thinking outside the box compared to traditional Navy training methods. Imagine you're sailing with a fleet of warships in 1893 and your commander suddenly says, "Let's try something crazy." Vice Admiral Sir George Tryon was known for pushing limits, but this time his plan would put hundreds of lives at risk. The Mediterranean Fleet was doing annual training exercises near Beirut when Tryon suggested narrowing the gap between 2 columns to just 400 yards. A super tight squeeze even by modern standards. But that's not all. He wanted them to get as close as 6 cables, or about 1,000 meters. That's way too close for comfort and totally disregarded initial officer concerns for safety. Fast forward to 15 o'clock, a critical moment when everything went awry. Without a clear warning signal, the fleet embarked on a complex maneuver that put all hands on deck in a high-stakes game of naval dodgeball. As the ships executed their intricate turns, it became clear that the order would remain intact within each column, significantly upping the chances of a catastrophic collision. This meant the relative positions were locked in, like swapping places without shuffling cards, you could say. Some historians even speculate that Tryon might have envisioned one division slipping outside the other during this chaotic dance, but we'll never know for sure. Imagine 2 lines, spaced 200 yards apart, trying to do a massive outside turn with an enormous 800-yard circle. They'd end up only 400 yards apart. Now, to make this crazy move work, one line would have had to turn at a different time or speed than the other. But, in a big mistake, Lord Guilford gave the signal for both lines to turn inward by 16 points. And we know this wasn't going to end well because it was clear they were heading for disaster. Some officers might have known Vice Admiral Sir George Tryon's plan, but surprisingly, nobody spoke up against it. Meanwhile, Rear Admiral Markham, in charge of the other line, seemed hesitant about sending that crucial flag signal, hinting he understood just how reckless this order really was. Get ready for a heart-stopping moment. Admiral Tryon spots the fleet heading straight for the shore and realizes he needs to make a sharp turn pronto. So, he sends a crucial semaphore signal to Markham. Think of it like a naval text message from the 19th century. What are you waiting for? With no time to waste, Markham quickly orders his column to start turning around. But guess what? Several officers on board later confessed that they were secretly hoping Tryon would call out the order at the very last second, saving them from a potentially disastrous crash. Still, the columns keep sailing straight towards each other. Will disaster strike? Imagine being on a ship in the middle of an emergency. Every second counts. But that's exactly what happened when the captains of 2 ships realized they were about to collide. Tragically, it took them too long to act, even though their training told them to respond quickly. The flag captain, Maurice Burke, had actually asked his commander, Tryon, not once, but 3 times to reverse the engines and avoid disaster. Still, he held back until he got the green light. It wasn't till the very last moment that Tryon finally shouted across to the other ship's captain, Markham, "Go astern." Go astern, the clock was ticking. Panic set in as crew members scrambled to react, but it was too little too late. The captains of both ships tried to hit the brakes by reversing their engines. A desperate attempt to avoid the catastrophic collision. Unfortunately, the Camperdown's deadly ram made contact with Victoria's starboard side, just 12 feet below the waterline. The impact was brutal, plunging 9 feet into the ship's hull and opening the floodgates to disaster. To make matters worse, the still spinning engines actually yanked the ram back out, allowing more seawater to pour in before the watertight doors could be closed. It was a nightmare scenario unfolding at breakneck speed. Fast forward 2 minutes after that fateful crash, the vessels were slowly drifting apart. It was a sizzling Thursday afternoon, when crew members typically got some downtime. But you know what they say about safety first, not. All hatches and vents were wide open, letting in a cool ocean breeze to chill out the ship. Now, keep in mind there's this massive 100-square-foot hole gaping open right into the sea, but our Captain Tryon and his trusty navigator, Staff Commander Thomas Hawkins Smith, were dead set on thinking this ship wouldn't go down. The decision was made. Tryon ordered a sharp turn towards the nearby 5-mile coastline, with plans to beach their damaged vessel. Meanwhile, rescue boats from surrounding ships were already en route. But Tryon had other ideas, sending them packing with a clear signal to retreat. Buckle up, guys. Just 2 minutes after Camperdown made her escape from the sunken ship, she's taking on water like crazy. It's gushing over her deck and flooding into those open hatches. Lieutenant Herbert Heath springs into action with a team to deploy this collision mat, essentially a giant patch that could plug the hole and slow down the water rush. But just as they're about to position the mat, they find themselves standing in ankle-deep water. Talk about bad timing. Meanwhile, 5 minutes after the crash, Camperdown's bow is already 15 feet underwater, and she's listing hard to starboard. Things are getting seriously dire here. Water's now pouring in through her gun ports like there's no tomorrow. The chaos had just begun. The engine room crew kept working, but a critical issue emerged. The hydraulic power for steering gave out, leaving the ship stuck and unable to turn. To make matters worse, the backup plan to launch lifeboats was also dead in the water, literally. 8 minutes post-crash, the front of the ship started taking on water at an alarming rate, flooding the main deck. The stern, however, was a different story. It was slowly lifting out of the water as the ship began to list. Captain Burke took charge, diving below deck to assess the damage and swiftly sealing off the watertight doors after the initial impact. But despite keeping the engine room dry, the situation up front was dire. Get ready for an intense rescue scene. As water poured in, some sailors got swept away while others were stuck inside. But time was running out, they couldn't seal up the ship fast enough. Captain Burke jumped back on deck and gave a crucial order: assemble the crew. Sailors lined up, turned to face the wall of water, and prepared for a daring escape. Just 13 minutes after the crash, Victoria capsized with a massive starboard shift, sending all loose items flying. It was every man for himself as they scrambled onto boats tossed aside during the chaotic flip. Imagine a disaster unfolding at lightning speed. When water surged into the funnels on the ship, it met the intense heat from the boilers, causing massive explosions. The vessel took a dramatic nosedive into the water with its belly up, and those spinning propellers were like deadly whirling blades, posing a huge threat to anyone nearby. While most of the crew managed to escape in time, a tragic loss occurred. Those trapped in the engine room never received orders to abandon their posts, resulting in their heartbreaking fate. Get ready for a gripping story of heroism and tragedy. Rev. SD. The ship's chaplain gave his all trying to save those in need. The sick on board were counting on him. With unrelenting dedication, he worked to keep everyone safe and in line, but ultimately, fate led him to go down with the ship. Now, imagine this scene. Rescue boats approaching the wreckage were met by a chilling sight. A massive ring of churning, foamy bubbles spreading outwards like a monstrous, bubbling milk bath, making it nearly impossible for them to get close and save anyone. Imagine being stuck in a whirlpool of chaos. That's what it was like for the survivors of the ship disaster. Gunner Frederick Johnson was one of the lucky ones who made it out alive, and he shared his terrifying experience of being pulled underwater not once, not twice, but 3 times. Lieutenant Lauren painted a vivid picture of the mayhem on the water's surface. Imagine massive chunks of debris flying around like they're weightless, creating an almost eerie boiling effect. Meanwhile, Camperdown was taking a pounding too. Her front part, known as the ram, nearly broke off and she started to flood from below. To make things worse, the ship's watertight doors hadn't closed in time, making it even harder for them to stay afloat. The devastating numbers are clear. 358 lives lost, 357 survivors rescued. You might be wondering who helped save those on board. Collingwood stepped up big time by providing a steam launch to aid in the rescue efforts. But the search for bodies only brought back 6 that fateful day, and they received a respectful burial thanks to the Sultan of Turkey's generosity. Just outside, these survivors were then quickly taken to Malta for further assistance. Did you know Commander John Jellicoe, Victoria's executive officer, was one of those lucky ones who made it out alive? Imagine being on top of that massive chart house as the ship you're on starts sinking. It's a terrifying thought. Hawkins Smith was right there with Tryon, but while he made it out alive, he witnessed the sheer power of the disaster and got tangled in the rigging. He even doubted if his companion could have possibly survived, given how much fitter he himself was. Years went by, over a decade, until on August 22, 2004, two brave divers, Lebanese-Austrian Christian Francis and British Mark Elliott, finally found what they were searching for: the wreck of HMS Victoria. Today, it's an astonishing 460 feet deep down into the ocean. Imagine stumbling upon a shipwreck where history's secrets are frozen in time, about 30 meters of it lying beneath the surface. The stern is pointing up, almost as if defying gravity. What's even wilder is discovering live ammunition still intact inside. This sunken vessel was a powerhouse, boasting two massive 16.25-inch guns on a single turret. Those were the largest ever seen on any British battleship back then. Talk about firepower. The fact that this ammo has stayed relatively preserved for over a century underwater is both astonishing and unsettling, showing just how destructive it could still be today. Yet, all this might have been avoided if Tryon had followed the right protocols. But did he really? Hit that thumbs up button if you found this informative, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button so you never miss an upcoming video packed with exciting knowledge. Let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts on what you learned today in the comments section below. We're looking forward to bringing you more engaging content in our next video.